Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Dan Blanchard with the Travel in Time with Dan show, where we mix travel with history and with leadership, and of course with me, Dan Blanchard. So today I'm in Stafford Springs at the CCC Museum in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. You might be saying, what is the CCC? I'm going to tell you in a minute. But first, let me give you a little background on the CCC and why it was developed, all right? Think about the 1930s and the Great Depression that swept across the U.S. and much of the world. Okay, the Great Depression, where 1 out of every 4 people were out of work, and something had to be done. So FDR becomes president, and he's got the radio, fireside chats, you know, the only thing to fair is fair itself, right? Above all, try something, do something, all that like motivational stuff, which was great, but it was actually brilliant. And FDR comes up with this New Deal. And as he's coming up with this New Deal, the CCC is going to be part of the New Deal, which is the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's going to be a great way to put young males back to work and use their muscle and get them off the streets. You know, idle hands is a bad thing, especially among young men just hanging out. That is not good for society. Too much testosterone hanging around with nothing to do, you know, except for maybe mischief. It's a bad thing. So he was going to get those young boys, those young men off the street with the Civilian Conservation Corps, and they were going to become the CCC boys. However, there were some stipulations. One, they had to be at least 5 feet tall, lack of nutrition, a lot of people weren't, and they had to have at least 3 good teeth in a row in their mouth. Again, lack of nutrition from the Great Depression ruined a lot of people's teeth, but I guess 3 straight teeth or 3 good teeth in a row weren't too hard to do. Okay, if you see behind me here in Stafford Springs, Connecticut, you see the CCC Museum, and these are some of the barracks. You know, maybe like 100 like young men would be here, and they would go off and they would do all sorts of like really cool things. Kind of like the Army. I was in the Army. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Army life. It was ran by the Army, pretty much, Army personnel. You know, there was like the early morning wake up, the roll call, all that stuff, going off into work, into the forest, and the quarries, and a whole bunch of other places to get some work done. They'd come back for lunch, at least for this one, and many of the Connecticut ones. They'd come back for lunch. They'd take back off and do it again in the afternoon. Come back for dinner, and then come back again at night. There would be dinner. There would be roll call. There would be taps. There would be lights out, all that sorts of stuff, and they would do it again the next day. Saturdays was to finish up whatever work they didn't finish. Saturday afternoons with like baseball games, recreation. Saturday nights they'd go into the nearby towns, wherever they were, whether it was Connecticut or across the United States or in the United States territories, right? They would go out to dances and to movies, all that sort of stuff. And then Sundays, of course, was like the church services and all that stuff. Now, how much money did these young CCC men make? They made, I think it was like maybe $1 a week, where a large portion of that money was actually sent back to their families during the Great Depression to help their families. This went on from about 1933 to about 1942, where World War II kind of phased a lot of this stuff out. It was World War II. All right. Now, these buildings are here. World War II comes around, right? This CCC program did some incredible things. And World War II comes around, and Churchill speaking to Roosevelt, and he's like, listen, I got these German prisoners of war. I can't house them, feed them. We don't have the money in here in England. Can you put them in the United States? FDR says, yeah. Do we got the CCC camps that are underutilized right now? Let's put the German prisoner of wars in these camps, which they did. All over the United States, they put them in these camps. And we used them again, and the German prisoners who had been taught and brainwashed that the Americans were evil and would kill them the first chance they got actually came here and got to go out in the community here in Connecticut and many other places around the United States and even some territories. And they got to see that, wow, the Americans were actually kind of nice people. We kind of liked them, right? And after World War II, believe it or not, when the German prisoners of war who were in these camps, these barracks, these camps were released, some of them actually came back to the United States to live, or they liked it so much, so go figure, okay? I think you might have heard another use, which you may not be familiar with, but I think you might have heard of Camp David. Okay, Camp David is where our presidents spend time, just outside of Washington D.C. I think Maryland. They get to spend some time there. And there's some real magic in Camp David. The president goes there, United States president goes there to like sometimes just relax, sometimes conduct business with foreign leaders. And there's just some magic in there, the rustic barracks of Camp David, right? The surrounding wilderness, all that stuff. And many of our presidents have been like, we've had some of our best conversations with other leaders around the world at Camp David. There's just something magic, something about the woods, the forest, the beauty of it, the calmness, the quietness, the serenity, all that stuff. And Camp David, believe it or not, it's like very, very rustic. So you got the United States president with other world leaders, and they're kind of like just couple of boys hanging out on equal terms, where some really cool negotiations and some great things have been accomplished. Jimmy Carter there with the Camp David Accords, right? Creating world peace. This is like some really, really big stuff. All right. So anyways, the CCC boys are kind of gone. A lot of them donated money to help these museums that you see sprinkled around the United States, including this big one right here in Connecticut, Stafford Springs, which I believe is the Northeast headquarters museum, which is kind of pretty cool. I like to include like leadership lessons in this. So what would be the leadership lesson here? And I think it's what FDR said, his famous quote of, but above all, try something. He did. He tried something. He put these young men back to work here at the CCC, even though he, was criticized, heavily criticized for it, right? He used them to help us in World War II, right? Camp David, right, is used for today, right? To try to get more done for the president, negotiations done among world leaders. I think that there's the leadership, right? But above all, try something. Right, and these camps being museums now is a beautiful thing, so that we don't lose this history and lose that leadership lesson of above all, try something. All right, guys, this has been great hanging out with you. Dan Blanchard here, talking about travel, history, and leadership. Not sure where I'll be next, but whatever it is, it's going to be really cool. And I'll catch up with you guys again sometime real soon. Take care now.